Beloved chosen one, pause right here. Do not rush past this moment. What you did today quietly, without applause, without witnesses, did not disappear into nothing. Heaven saw it, not partially, not vaguely, fully, clearly. You touched heaven today, and God is beyond delighted with what you did. You may think it was small. You may even be questioning whether it mattered at all. But listen carefully, obedience is never small when it is costly to you. You did not do this for attention. You did not do this to be seen. You did it even though it would have been easier to compromise, easier to delay, easier to choose yourself. That is exactly why heaven leaned in. That is exactly why this moment matters more than you realize. Maybe it happened at work. You could have cut a corner. You could have exaggerated numbers, stayed silent while someone else took the blame, or agreed with something you knew was wrong just to protect your position. Instead, you chose integrity. It may have cost you favor with people. It may have made things awkward. You may even be wondering if it slowed your progress. But what you don't see yet is that God values integrity over speed. You didn't fall behind today, you stepped ahead in the spirit. Or perhaps it happened in your finances. You were under pressure. Bills stacked up. Anxiety whispered that no one would notice if you held back, if you kept what you knew you were supposed to release. And yet, you still chose obedience. You gave. You honored God. You trusted Him when logic screamed otherwise. Heaven does not ignore moments like that. Provision is not just about money, it is about trust. And today, you proved where your trust truly lives. It may have been in your family. You chose patience when anger would have felt justified. You stayed silent instead of retaliating. You forgave without receiving an apology. You showed up emotionally when it would have been easier to shut down. That choice required strength. That strength did not come from you alone. God saw it, and God smiled. You need to hear this clearly. Obedience delights God. Not loud obedience, not perfect obedience, but real obedience, the kind that costs you something. There is a dangerous lie circulating that says God only moves in dramatic moments. That unless something looks miraculous, it isn't meaningful. That is false. Heaven moves powerfully in quiet decisions. The unseen moments are often the most celebrated ones in the spiritual realm. You may feel tired now, drained, wondering why doing the right thing feels so heavy. That exhaustion does not mean you were wrong. It means you carried weight. And weight is given only to those who are trusted. We are reminded through the writings of David in the Psalms, chapter 25, verse 14. The Lord confides in those who fear Him. He makes His covenant known to them. That verse is not poetic fluff. It is a spiritual principle. God shares deeper things with those who honor Him even when no one else is watching. Today, you showed reverence not just with words, but with action. And because of that, God is drawing you closer, not pushing you away. Let this sink in. Delight does not mean approval of performance. It means joy in relationship. God is not clapping because you impressed Him. He is rejoicing because you trusted Him. Right now, something unseen has shifted. You may not feel it emotionally, but spiritually, alignment has taken place. Think of it like gears locking into place. Before today, things may have felt stuck, slow, resistant, but obedience realigns the system. It doesn't always speed things up immediately, but it removes resistance. This is where hope comes in, and not vague hope, specific hope. If you have been praying for clarity in your career, today's obedience has positioned you to hear direction more clearly. If you have been asking for peace in your home, Today's choice planted a seed that will grow into stability. If you have been waiting for breakthrough financially, understand this: God is far more interested in building you than just blessing you. And today, you grew. Here is the tension you must hold. You may not be rewarded immediately, but you are already recognized. Heaven's recognition always precedes earthly manifestation. Always. Do not let the enemy twist this moment by whispering, "Nothing changed." That is how people walk away from breakthrough right before it appears. The test is not whether you see results today. The test is whether you will remain aligned tomorrow. Ask yourself this, honestly and without defensiveness: if no one ever applauds this decision, would you still make it again? That question reveals the depth of your calling. Chosen one, this is not coincidence. This is divine affirmation. God is beyond delighted not because you are flawless, but because you are faithful. Faithfulness is rare. That is why it is rewarded. If this message confirms what your spirit already felt today, take a moment now. Like this message, share it with someone who needs reassurance that obedience is not wasted, and subscribe to stay connected to what God is unfolding next. And as a prophetic act of agreement, comment 777 below once declaring that you choose alignment over applause. You may not realize it yet, but something shifted because of what you did. Not loudly, not dramatically, quietly. The kind of shift that doesn't announce itself yet alters outcomes weeks, months, even years later. This section is about that kind of faith, the hidden kind. The kind that never trends, never gets validated by people, yet moves the hand of God. There are moments when obedience feels invisible. No applause, no confirmation text, no sudden relief, just silence. And that silence can feel unsettling. Your mind starts asking dangerous questions. Did it matter? Was it worth it? Did anyone even notice? This is where many people begin to retreat, to undo with doubt what they just built with faith. But you didn't retreat. You stayed steady, and that matters. Think about your finances again, but this time from a different angle. Maybe it wasn't about giving. Maybe it was about restraint. You wanted to spend to feel better, to soothe stress, to reward yourself after a hard season. Instead, you chose wisdom. You chose discipline. You said no to something you could afford because you knew it wasn't time. That decision didn't feel spiritual, but it was. Stewardship is worship when no one is watching. Or consider your workplace. You showed up on a day when your motivation was gone. You did your job with excellence even though you felt overlooked. You didn't slack off just because your effort wasn't being recognized. You kept your standards high even when leadership around you didn't. That wasn't weakness. That was strength under control. Maybe it was relational. You stopped yourself from sending a message that would have escalated conflict. You paused instead of reacting. You chose to pray instead of prove your point. That restraint took more power than confrontation ever could. And restraint is one of heaven's favorite indicators of maturity. Hidden faith always looks unimpressive in the natural. That's why it's rare. Most people only obey when there is immediate reward. But you obeyed when the outcome was unclear. That places you in a different category altogether. As the ancient words recorded in the letter to the Hebrews, chapter 11, verse 6, still echo today. And without faith it is impossible to please God, because anyone who comes to him must believe that he exists and that he rewards those who earnestly seek him. Notice what that verse does not say. It does not say God rewards those who are seen. It does not say those who are praised. It says those who seek him earnestly. Earnest seeking often happens in silence, confusion, and delay. Right now, you might feel like nothing has changed externally. The same problems, the same pressures, the same unanswered questions. But internally, something is different. You are becoming someone who can be trusted with more. And trust always comes before expansion. Here is where hope becomes tangible, not abstract. That discipline you practiced financially is preparing you for stability later. Not just income, but peace. The integrity you showed at work is quietly building a reputation that will speak for you when you are not in the room. The patience you practiced in your family is laying groundwork for healing conversations that will come when hearts are softer. Hidden faith shifts future conversations. There is also a warning here, not harsh, but necessary. If you constantly need affirmation to continue, you will stop whenever affirmation disappears. That makes your faith fragile. God is strengthening you beyond that stage. He is teaching you to move by conviction, not validation. Think of a seed under soil. It looks like nothing is happening. But under the surface, pressure is doing its work. Roots are forming before anything breaks ground. If the seed were exposed too early, it would die. Some of your progress is hidden for your protection. This explains why certain prayers feel delayed. God is not withholding. He is stabilizing the foundation. What you are becoming must be able to sustain what you are about to receive. Look honestly at your life and answer this. Without rushing past it, would you still obey God if the results remained invisible for a while? That question separates emotional faith from anchored faith. You are being trained for longevity, not moments. That is why this season feels slower, quieter, more internal. And that is why heaven values it so highly. You are not being ignored. You are being formed. Stay here. Stay steady. Hidden faith always surfaces at the right time. Do not rush this process or try to dig up what God Himself has buried for growth. What is forming in you right now will soon support weight you could not carry before. Silence does not mean absence. It means preparation is still underway, and timing is being perfected. When the moment comes, you will recognize it instantly. Doors will open without force. Conversations will shift. Resistance will ease. And you will understand that the quiet obedience you practiced in this season was not wasted. It was the very thing that made the next chapter possible. You were pressed and you knew it. This was not a gentle moment. This was not a calm decision made in comfort. This was pressure, the kind that exposes what is really inside you. And under that pressure, you chose what was right instead of what was easy. That choice did not go unnoticed. Pressure has a way of stripping things down. It removes excuses, it silences theories, it forces truth to the surface. Anyone can talk about faith when life is smooth. Anyone can sound spiritual when there is no cost involved. But pressure asks a different question. Who are you when obedience hurts? You answered that question with your actions. Maybe the pressure came through people. A family member pushed your limits. A spouse said something that cut deep. A coworker tested your patience again and again. You felt justified to react, to defend, to explode, or to shut down completely. Instead, you paused. You restrained your tongue. You walked away instead of escalating. That restraint felt like weakness in the moment, but it was power under control. Or the pressure came through time, deadlines, waiting, delays that made you feel forgotten. You wanted to rush ahead, to force progress, to make something happen just so the waiting would stop. But you didn't. You waited. You stayed honest. You refused shortcuts. That kind of patience is rare, and it is forged only under pressure. For some, the pressure was financial. Unexpected expenses, reduced income, uncertainty that tightened your chest at night. You were tempted to panic, to grasp, to compromise principles just to feel safe. But you didn't cross that line. You stayed grounded. You chose wisdom over fear. That decision may not have removed the pressure yet, but it revealed your character clearly. Pressure always tries to convince you that you are alone in the moment, that no one sees, that no one cares, that survival matters more than integrity. But pressure lies. It narrows your vision so you forget who is watching. As the ancient words recorded in the letter to the Corinthians, chapter 10, verse 13. Still speak with clarity. No temptation has overtaken you except what is common to mankind. And God is faithful. He will not let you be tempted beyond what you can bear. That verse is not about temptation alone. It is about pressure. It is a reminder that the intensity you felt did not mean you were weak. It meant you were trusted with something that matched your capacity. God already knew you could withstand it. Here is something few people understand. Pressure does not create character, it reveals it. And what was revealed in you was endurance. This is where hope becomes specific. The restraint you showed in relationships is protecting future trust. People may not say it out loud, but they noticed you didn't lose control. That matters more than winning arguments. The patience you practiced in delay is building emotional strength that will keep you steady when success arrives. The discipline you showed under financial stress is forming habits that will sustain abundance later. Pressure-trained people don't collapse when responsibility increases. There is also a quiet shift happening inside you. You are no longer as reactive as you once were. Certain triggers don't hook you the same way. Certain fears don't dominate your thinking like before. That is growth. It didn't come from motivation. It came from pressure met with obedience. But let's be honest, this season wasn't comfortable. There were moments you almost gave in. Moments you questioned whether holding the line was worth it. That doesn't disqualify you. It proves you were in a real battle. What matters is this: you did not let pressure rewrite your values. That is why this moment matters more than external outcomes. You are becoming someone who can be trusted when things get intense, and intensity is unavoidable at higher levels. God prepares His people in advance. Ask yourself this directly, without softening it. When pressure rises again, and it will you remember who you proved yourself to be here? Hold on to that answer. Before moving forward, mark this moment intentionally. Comment "I chose" right below. This is not about proving anything to others. It is a personal declaration that when pressure tried to bend you, you did not surrender your values. It reminds you that in a difficult moment, you made the right decision even when it cost you comfort, speed, or approval. The pressure didn't break you, it clarified you. And that clarity is preparing you for what comes next. When you type "I chose right," you are not celebrating perfection, you are honoring alignment. You are acknowledging that in a moment of pressure, confusion, or temptation, you did not let emotion lead. You allowed conviction to guide you, and that choice shaped your future more than you realize. This comment is a quiet marker in time. It says you remember the moment you stood firm when it would have been easier to fold. Long after the pressure fades, this declaration reminds you that your identity is not built on outcomes, but on the decisions you make when it matters most. There is a quiet moment in Scripture that does not begin with thunder or fire, but with loss. Ruth stands beside Naomi with nothing in her hands and no guarantee ahead of her. Her husband is gone. Her future is uncertain. Logic tells her to return to what is familiar, to choose safety, to preserve herself. Yet she does something that defies practicality. She stays. Ruth's choice in chapter 1 is not dramatic on the surface. No miracles happen in that instant. No doors open immediately. She simply refuses to leave. She chooses loyalty over logic, commitment over comfort, presence over protection, and that decision made in grief, not confidence, becomes the hinge on which her destiny turns. This story matters because you have stood in a similar place, not literally on a dusty road between Moab and Bethlehem, but in a moment where staying felt harder than leaving, where walking away would have been understandable, where no one would have blamed you for choosing yourself. Yet something in you said, stay, not because it was easy, not because it was rewarded immediately, but because it was right. Maybe it looked like staying in a job that felt beneath your calling, yet you sensed God was shaping something deeper than a title. You clock in each day, answer emails, solve problems, even when your heart whispers that you were meant for more. Staying feels invisible, but God is using the ordinary to prepare you for the extraordinary. Maybe it meant staying committed to a marriage or relationship when emotions ran dry and only covenant remained. You still listen. You still show up. You still choose kindness when it would be easier to withdraw. No one applauds that kind of faithfulness, but heaven records it carefully. Maybe it meant staying faithful to a calling that hasn't paid off yet. You keep building, learning, preparing, while others quit or move on. You watch them advance faster and wonder if you missed something, but deep down, you know you were told to stay. Staying is rarely celebrated. Leaving gets applause, staying gets silence. Ruth did not stay because Naomi could offer her security. Naomi was broken, grieving, and bitter. Ruth stayed because her decision was rooted in something deeper than outcomes. She aligned herself with purpose, not probability, as was spoken in the sacred texts of old, in the book of Ruth, chapter 1, verse 16. Where you go, I will go, and where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God, my God. That verse is not romantic sentiment, it is spiritual resolve. Ruth binds her future to a path she cannot see clearly. She chooses alignment over advantage, and heaven takes note. You need to understand this: God is deeply pleased when you choose alignment without guarantees. That kind of faith carries weight. It reveals trust not in circumstances, but in God's character. In daily life, this choice often feels unspectacular. You manage your finances carefully, even when progress feels slow. You resist debt, impulse, and comparison. You plan instead of panic. That discipline may feel restrictive now, but it is quietly building freedom for later. You continue being emotionally present for family members who rarely reciprocate. You check in. You care. You forgive again. That consistency is not weakness, it is strength anchored in love. You keep praying, keep believing, keep walking forward even when nothing seems to change. That is Ruth-level faith. There is a misconception that God delights most in bold leaps. But Scripture shows again and again that God smiles deeply at steady steps. Ruth didn't leap into destiny, she walked into it, one loyal decision at a time. Here is where hope becomes very real. Because Ruth stayed, she eventually stepped into provision she never could have engineered. Because she stayed, she was positioned for favor she didn't pursue. Because she stayed, her obedience connected her to a lineage she could never have imagined. Your staying is doing the same thing. The season you are in right now, where consistency feels boring, faithfulness feels unnoticed, and obedience feels heavy, is not a holding pattern. It is positioning. You are standing exactly where future doors know how to find you. There is also a quiet warning wrapped in this story. Naomi tried to send Ruth away not out of malice, but out of discouragement. Sometimes people release you not because you are wrong, but because they cannot see what God is building through you. Ruth did not let someone else's weariness cancel her conviction. You may need to hear this clearly. Someone else's bitterness does not invalidate your obedience. Ask yourself this question. Honestly, what have you stayed faithful to even when no immediate reward followed? That answer reveals more about your destiny than your accomplishments ever could. God is beyond delighted with this kind of loyalty, not because it looks impressive, but because it reflects His own heart. God stays. God commits. God finishes what He begins. If this story feels familiar, don't rush past it. Think of it like placing a small stone on the road to remember where you once stood. When you gently affirm this message, it is like nodding to heaven and saying, I recognize this path. When you pass this message along, it becomes a lamp you leave behind for another weary traveler, someone who may be standing where Ruth once stood, unsure whether to stay or turn back. And when you choose to remain connected, it is not a subscription, it is choosing to walk the same road together, season after season, trusting that light reveals more with every step. Ruth stayed, and because she stayed, heaven rewrote her future. So will you. There is a moment in every faith journey where God shifts the instruction. Earlier, the call was to plant, then it was to stay. Now, the call is different and more uncomfortable for the mind. Now God is saying, stop interfering with what you already placed in my hands. Many people delay their own breakthrough not because they lack faith, but because they keep digging up what they already sowed. They prayed and then checked anxiously the next day. They obeyed and then revisited the decision again and again, replaying doubts. They trusted and then panicked when time passed without visible change. This section is practical because this season requires maturity, not intensity. The first instruction is simple but not easy. Stop digging up the seed. In everyday life, this looks like constantly rethinking a decision God already confirmed. You said yes to a job, then keep scanning other options out of fear. You committed to a financial plan, then keep breaking it because progress feels slow. You forgave someone, then keep reopening the wound by replaying the offense. Every time you do that, you disturb the soil. Seeds do their deepest work underground. Silence is not inactivity, it is development. There is a reason farmers don't check seeds daily. If they did, nothing would ever grow. Faith works the same way. The moment you keep demanding proof is the moment you confess mistrust, even if unintentionally. In your daily routine, stop digging may mean limiting how often you talk about the same worry. It may mean fasting from overthinking. It may mean refusing to rehearse worst-case scenarios before bed. These are not spiritual dramatics, they are practical disciplines. Here is the truth most people miss. Peace is often the sign that faith is active. Now comes the second instruction, and it balances the first, prepare the container. This is where hope becomes tangible. Many people ask God for more, but their lives are not structured to hold it. You can pray for increase all day, but if your habits are chaotic, the blessing would spill. God prepares blessings by first expanding capacity. In daily life, preparing the container looks very practical. If you are believing for financial increase, you prepare the container by managing what you already have. Well, you budget, you organize, you reduce unnecessary leaks. Not because money is your God, but because stewardship is a signal of readiness. If you are praying for relational healing or family peace, you prepare the container by learning to communicate better, by listening more than reacting, by creating emotional space instead of tension. You don't wait for change, you make room for it. If you are believing for clarity in calling or career, You prepare the container by sharpening skills, maintaining discipline, showing up consistently. You become the kind of person who could carry the answer when it arrives. Preparation is faith in motion. The danger is praying for harvest while living as if nothing is coming. Faith prepares chairs before guests arrive. This is why Scripture gives a quiet but powerful principle. According to what is revealed in the book of Proverbs chapter 21, verse 5, the plans of the diligent lead surely to abundance, but everyone who is hasty comes only to poverty. Diligence is not impatience. It is steady preparation without panic. Right now, God is not asking you to strive harder. He is asking you to trust deeper and organize wiser. Stop disturbing the seed. Start preparing the space. This balance matters. If you only stop digging but never prepare, you stagnate. If you only prepare but never trust, you exhaust yourself. Faith lives in the middle. Picture this: in a normal day, you wake up, do what you can control, release what you can't, and resist the urge to micromanage outcomes. That rhythm is spiritual maturity. Ask yourself this direct question: if what I am praying for arrived tomorrow, would my current life be able to hold it? That answer reveals what needs preparation, not condemnation, just clarity. There is also encouragement here. The fact that God is teaching you how to wait means the promise is real. He does not train people for imaginary futures. Instruction always precedes arrival. You are not being teased. You are being readied. So mark this moment intentionally. Comment 888 below, not as superstition, but as a symbol of new alignment and readiness. Let it represent your decision to stop digging up the seed and to prepare the container with peace, discipline, and trust. What you planted is still alive. What you prepared will not be wasted. And what is coming will fit because you made room for it. When you write 888, you are not chasing luck or numbers. You are declaring completion of a cycle and readiness for the next one. It signals that you trust the seed you planted and refuse to disturb it with fear, impatience, or constant rechecking. This number also reflects preparation. It says you are aligning habits, mindset, and structure with what you believe is coming. By typing 888, you are acknowledging that overflow requires order and you are choosing to make space before increase arrives. By now, you may notice something subtle but undeniable. You are not rushing the way you used to. The urgency that once drove you has softened into something steadier, not weaker, steadier. This is not loss of passion. It is the birth of discernment. There is a phase in every calling where God stops giving instructions every step of the way, not because He has withdrawn, but because He is strengthening your internal compass. This is where many become uncomfortable. Silence feels risky. Stillness feels like stagnation. Yet this is often the most formative stretch of all. You are learning to walk without constant reassurance. In everyday life, this looks very practical. You make decisions without needing to explain yourself to everyone. You no longer rush to prove that your choice was right. You feel less reactive when things don't go as planned. The emotional spikes begin to flatten, not because you care less, but because you trust more. At work, you may still face uncertainty. Goals may feel distant. Recognition may be delayed. But instead of spiraling, you focus on consistency. You show up. You improve quietly. You let time speak. This is not passivity. It is confidence that doesn't need noise. In finances, you may still be waiting for relief or increase. Yet panic no longer governs your choices. You plan carefully. You live within wisdom. You resist comparison. You understand that peace is already a form of provision. That alone marks maturity in family or relationships. You stop forcing outcomes. You release the need to control responses. You communicate clearly, then allow space. You realize that not every silence is rejection, and not every delay is denial. Sometimes it is simply timing. This season is about endurance, not dramatic endurance, but quiet faithfulness. Endurance is not glamorous. It does not feel powerful in the moment. But endurance is what carries people safely through transition. Without it, even blessings become burdens. The Apostle Paul reminds us in his letter to the Galatians, chapter 6, verse 9. Let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. Notice the phrase proper time, not your preferred time, not the fastest time, the proper time. That implies precision. It implies intention. It implies that delay is not randomness, it is calibration. Right now, God is calibrating you. You are learning how to hold joy and patience at the same time, how to remain hopeful without becoming anxious, how to trust outcomes without obsessing over them. These are not small skills. They are essential for longevity. Many people collapse not because they faced hardship, but because they were promoted before they were stabilized. God is sparing you from that. He is reinforcing you from the inside out. You may notice fewer emotional highs and lows. That is not spiritual dryness, it is emotional grounding. You are becoming harder to shake, less triggered, more rooted. That kind of stability is rare, and it is powerful. Here's the hope you need to anchor into this season is not stripping you, it is strengthening you. Everything you are practicing now will matter later. The patience, the discipline, the restraint, the trust. These are the things that will protect what is coming so it does not overwhelm you. Ask yourself this honestly. Am I willing to value steadiness as much as I once valued speed? That answer reveals how far you have come. You are not behind. You are not forgotten. You are not stalled. You are being established. Roots grow quietly, but they determine how high something can rise without collapsing. Stay present. Stay grounded. Stay faithful in the ordinary. This season is not meant to impress others, it is meant to anchor you. And what is anchored will not be easily moved when the winds change. What you are becoming now will soon explain why the process took so long. When clarity arrives, it will not shock you, it will make sense. You will see how every delay trained you to carry weight without panic, responsibility without fear, and progress without losing yourself along the way. There will come a moment when others rush, but you remain calm, not because you are indifferent, but because you are anchored. You will recognize chaos sooner and refuse to be pulled into it. That steadiness will become your quiet advantage in rooms where others feel overwhelmed. You will also notice that your prayers sound different, less frantic, more trusting. You no longer beg for outcomes, you align with wisdom. That shift changes how heaven responds. Faith that rests is faith that is ready. Anxiety leaves when confidence takes root. This season is teaching you to listen inwardly before reacting outwardly, to pause before responding, to choose timing over impulse. These small internal pauses will later prevent large external regrets. What feels slow now will save you time later. Soon, responsibility will increase, but it will not crush you, because you were trained to carry it gradually. What overwhelms others will feel manageable to you, not because you are stronger by nature, but because you were strengthened intentionally. Remember this: when progress accelerates, it was not sudden, it was prepared. What you step into next will not require you to become someone new. It will simply reveal who you have already been becoming quietly all along. You are not standing where you once stood. Even if your surroundings look familiar, you are different. Something has been completed quietly inside you. And because of that, a new level has already opened. Not opened with noise, not opened with spectacle, opened with readiness. This is how God often works. He does not announce elevation before alignment. He waits until your inner posture can support the outer shift. That is why this moment feels calm instead of chaotic. You are not being pushed forward, you are being invited upward. Think about how your responses have changed. Things that once rattled you no longer have the same grip. You pause where you used to react. You listen where you used to defend. You choose wisely where you once rushed. That is evidence. Growth does not always shout. Sometimes it steadies. In daily life, this new level shows up in very grounded ways. At work, you no longer chase validation as desperately. You focus on substance over attention. You understand that visibility without stability is dangerous. So you build quietly. You've learned that influence lasts longer when it grows roots first. In finances, you no longer fantasize about sudden rescue. You value sustainability, you plan, you pace yourself. You understand that peace is wealth and clarity is provision. This mindset protects you from cycles that trap others repeatedly. In family and relationships, you bring a different energy, less force, more presence. You don't need to win every conversation to feel secure. You choose understanding over control. That emotional maturity is not accidental, it was earned. This is what elevation actually looks like. Many people imagine next level as instant change. But in the kingdom, next level often means expanded responsibility with increased grace. You are calmer because you are stronger. You are quieter because you are clearer. And heaven confirms this pattern, as Jesus himself declared in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 25, verse 21. Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Notice the order. Faithful first, expansion second. God does not elevate potential, he elevates proven stewardship. You have been proven. This does not mean life will suddenly become effortless, but it does mean you are equipped differently now. Challenges that would have overwhelmed you before will meet a steadier version of you. Decisions that once confused you will feel clearer. Doors that once intimidated you will feel appropriate. Here is the hope you must hold tightly. You are not stepping into pressure without preparation. You are stepping into opportunity with maturity. There is also a responsibility that comes with this level. You must guard what you've gained, not with fear, but with intention. Old habits will try to resurface. Old voices may try to pull you back into urgency or comparison. But you know better now. Ask yourself this final grounding question. Will I honor this new level by living differently, even when no one is watching? That question will keep you aligned as this journey continues. Think of it like walking along a shoreline at dawn. When something here resonates deeply, it's like placing your footprint in the sand, quietly acknowledging, I was here, and this mattered. When you choose to pass this message forward, it's like sending a ripple across the water, soft, but reaching farther than you can see. And when you decide to remain close to this flow, it's like choosing to walk the coast together, letting each step reveal more of the horizon without rushing the sunrise. And if something in this message mirrors your own journey, leave a quiet mark beneath it. Not to explain yourself, but to testify without words. A simple line becomes like carving your initials into stone, not for the crowd, but as a witness that you crossed this threshold awake, aware, and willing to rise. Nothing is forced. Nothing is demanded, though these are gentle choices made from recognition, not obligation. You have not arrived at an ending. You have crossed a threshold. What comes next will require courage, but not confusion. Faith, but not frenzy. Strength, but not striving. You are ready not because you feel fearless, but because you have learned to move forward without fear being in charge. This is your level now. Walk it with grace, carry it with humility, and trust that the God who brought you here is already waiting ahead. What you step into next will feel familiar yet elevated, like returning to a place you've been before but seeing it from higher ground. You will recognize old paths, but your perspective will be different. Where fear once spoke loudly, wisdom will answer calmly. Where doubt once lingered, discernment will now guide your steps. Carry this awareness gently into your days. Not everything ahead will be easy, but it will be meaningful. You will sense when to move and when to wait. And in that balance, you will discover that confidence is no longer something you chase. It is something you carry quietly, wherever you go. Before you move on, pause for a moment, not to decide anything, not to respond quickly, just to notice what stayed with you. Some messages pass through the mind, others settle quietly in the heart. If even one sentence here slowed you down, steadied you, or helped you breathe a little deeper, that matters. This ending is intentionally open because growth does not like to be rushed into conclusions. You don't need to agree with everything. You don't need to remember it all. Sometimes, what truly helps is just one image, one idea, one gentle reminder that meets you exactly where you are. If you feel this message could help someone else, someone tired, steadying themselves, or quietly choosing faithfulness, then letting it travel further is like opening a window and allowing fresh air into another room. You don't need to explain why. You don't need to persuade. Simply let it move if it feels right. And if sharing doesn't feel aligned, that's okay too. Then keep what touched you, carry it privately. Let it shape how you respond tomorrow, how you wait, how you choose. Some things are meant to be held, not handed off. Some truths do their best work in silence. You are not required to do anything with what you've heard. There is no pressure here. Meaning only lasts when it is chosen freely. So take what fits, release what doesn't. Trust your discernment. This is not a full stop. It's a pause, one you're allowed to stay in for as long as you need.